Good evening and welcome once more to 2020 Vision, where we're going to take a look at a very serious issue in our political lives today. I'm Jenny Fisher from East London News, and I have two guests joining me today, and let's make it clear from the start. Both are joining in a personal capacity, but of course they bring their experience to the programme as well. So welcome back, Mr. Arman, a man who was standing for election last time we met on this programme. But congratulations, Mish, because you've now been elected to the Labour Party National Executive Committee. How are you finding it?
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, it's good to be back. Thank you for inviting me back. Yeah, I'm proud to be elected onto Labour's National Executive Committee, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster as soon as we've entered. But
tragically,
yeah,
something's happening in the system, which means that I can't actually hear you, Mish. I know the listeners can. But for some reason it takes a while for my mic to switch on, so I'm all the poorer for not being able to hear you. But I trust that was an interesting comment for our listeners. And now I'm going to introduce Ruhul Amin, who activists in Tower Hamlets will know, another man from the south of the borough who's been a Labour Party member for a while, so you're very welcome, Ruhul. And tonight we're going to talk about Islamophobia in the Labour Party. A new report has come out and has brought with it the news that something like 1 in 3 members have actually witnessed Islamophobia taking place in the Labour Party. So I'm sorry, we are having some internet problems tonight. The Midlands is not well served by the internet, and there are some issues in Tower Hamlets tonight as well, but we'll soldier on and keep going. So let's just have a quick reminder. Mish, how did you first get involved in political activity? What drew you into a political life? Remind us.
So my political story goes back a while. I've always been involved in community activism, and I was a Labour Party member back in 97 when Labour were riding high with Tony Blair winning a landslide election. I left the party in 2002 in opposition to the Iraq War. Although my activism continued in the community, I rejoined in 2014 when Ed Miliband was leader, because I could see that Labour were moving in the correct direction in terms of my politics. And I was lucky to be able to vote for Jeremy Corbyn not once but twice for leader. And I think that's where my political inspiration came from. I was part of the Bernie Grant Leadership Programme, which was a Labour initiative to future BAME leaders. And that's what inspired me to take leadership positions within the party. And I became CLP chair. And I'm now on, I also became a member of Momentum's National Coordinating Group when I was elected as a rep for the Midlands and East region, and now I'm a member of the Labour Party's National Executive Committee, and I'm proud to be the first Bangladeshi to be elected onto the Labour's National Executive Committee.
I mean, obviously Bernie Grant, who was MP for Tottenham, wasn't it? Was one of the first black MPs. I've got a feeling he was also a member of the Labour Party National Executive, but I'm not sure. I may be wrong. So, but you're certainly.
I don't think he was.
No? Oh well, you're following in his footsteps one way or another. So that's good. Now,
well, I'm grateful to Jeremy Corbyn and Dawn Butler, who was the Shadow Equalities Minister at that time, for giving people like me the opportunity to be able to excel, and also inspiring me and giving me confidence, because I mean there was about 50 people from BAME communities chosen from hundreds of applicants, and I was lucky to be one of them. And it really did inspire me that it is people like me can become leaders within our party, and not just that, we can represent our communities, and there aren't any obstacles and barriers if we really try hard and work to it and persevere.
Well, that's a bold statement, which we'll be looking at a bit further tonight in terms of the barriers and so forth. I think, Ruhul, you've probably seen a few more barriers in your political life, because we sort of specialise in them in Tower Hamlets. How did you actually get involved in politics, Ruhul?
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with you and Mish, who I supported when he actually campaigned to become the NEC member. I started like Mish back in 1997, believe me or not. I actually became a member in 1997. And then I left in 2001 when the first the second Gulf War started. So that was one of the reasons I left. And then I rejoined again in 2015. So I've been sort of on and off from the party, but I've been very active since 2015. And like you said, Towers is a very interesting place. So many things going on, and I've had my fair share of hurdles in Towers in sort of achieving things that I wanted to do or I wanted to see happening within the party or within the community. So yes, so that's me. I'm very passionate. I was a former councillor. I'm sure you know this. I'm currently the Labour BME secretary for Poplar Limehouse. Also the secretary for Shadwell Ward.
Yes, I mean, just I'll go on the record as well while we're on the subject. I've actually been a Labour Party member since 1981. I've never got round to leaving. I'm not very good at the old administration. But either way, even when the party was doing a lot of things I disagreed with, wars and so forth, I still went in and tried to change the party. I must admit, I do have a view that if you leave the party, oh, that party's dreadful, I can't support it, then you're just sort of basically condemning it to be constantly dreadful and leaving it to other people to change it.
I think
it's a bit provocative.
I think in my case, Jenny, it was a bit more. It was different because I think I was a lot younger. I mean, I was 20 in my early 20s, and I was a lot more impatient. But now I think it will take a lot more than that to drag me out of the party, because this is our party and it's how we make it, and I'm committed to make it into the anti-racist, fair, compassionate party representing vulnerable people as it should be. And unfortunately, when the period when we left, it wasn't. It had become an imperialistic project.
I think that word imperialist is quite important because it's featured not only, I think, in the Labour Party's formal policies in government, but also, or in opposition, but also sometimes in its own internal procedures, which we'll get onto shortly. But one thing that interested me about what the two of you said, that you've both spoken about role models. I mean, to some extent, okay, I do like your story, Mish, about the Bernie Grant leadership programme, and people should know that the Labour Party took that step to encourage young BAME members to come forward. But also, of course, Bernie was instrumental in setting up black sections, which was the forerunner to what we now have, the BAME forums. So, Rule, can you explain to us why you became interested in the BAME forum? Do you see that as having an important role in the Labour Party? I mean, not just locally in Tower Hamlets, but does it help put BAME members on the map nationally?
Thank you, Jenny, for the question. Most definitely. I mean, we need a voice. We need a platform. So therefore, the BAME forum is very important. We've since I've become the secretary, we've managed to pass so many motions, and we managed to sort of overturn certain decisions within the council. And I feel really great about that. We have a voice. Until I became the secretary of Poplar Limehouse BAME forum, it was almost sort of non-active. The forum was there for many years, but when I became the secretary, I sort of started doing activities, regular meetings, the regular events. We're having one tomorrow, by the way. So it's almost like every month I'm actually organizing something on certain issues. Tomorrow we have a public event. We've invited people from the TfL to actually speak on the 24-hour bus lanes and how it's affected the whole London economy. So we'll have other dignitaries as well. I've invited MPs and mayor, so let's see how it goes. But I'm very glad and proud of the fact that since I've become the secretary, I've managed to achieve many things, which I'm very proud of, to be honest. And I think it's a very powerful voice. We really need. I thank Bernie Grant. I know he played a very crucial part in actually getting this out, and because of that, we have a voice. you know. So basically, I was a councillor, and I actually, funny enough, I actually became a secretary of the BAME Forum after, you know, resigning from the council. Well, obviously a lot of my colleagues felt that I could do a really good job because I've always been active. Some say, you know,
well,
really active. So,
that's the main thing, isn't it? That whatever
right,
you...
And I'm sure you know, Jenny, I've campaigned on many issues in Tower Hamlets. We've managed, we've campaigned for the day.
Let's go on to talk about them, because we want to get to the nitty gritty of the. I mean, both of you have spoken now about getting more BAME members involved and on the map in the Labour Party, and about campaigning. Of course, Mish has just been campaigning as well. So, just if you can just maybe, Mish, tell me a little bit about the Labour Party report says a third of its members have witnessed Islamophobia actually in the party. Can that be true in this day and age? Is that really true? What do you think?
Well, thank you for raising that, Jenny. I mean, I feel a growing sense of unease, and I think it's captured in detail within the report on Islamophobia by the Labour Muslim Network. I'm grateful to them for highlighting this. As a Muslim myself, as somebody who was politicised mainly, I feel even more during the hostile environment which was created, if you remember, by the Labour Party. Back in early 2000s, the Labour Party was the party that had people like Jack Straw, who would come out and say that he felt that hijabi constituents, he felt uncomfortable with hijabi constituents coming to his surgeries, and he would wish them to remove their veils. And I mean, we'd also have incidents in Tower Hamlets as well, where I think in Poplar Limehouse you had members of parliaments commenting about Bengali Muslim weddings being a hotbed of extremism and along those lines. So I think the hostile environment the Labour Party was at that time quite involved in setting up. And I think the report defines Islamophobia as being a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. And that's quite damning, because a third of Muslim members say they've directly experienced Islamophobia, whereas 44% have no confidence in the party to deal with Islamophobia, and 46% of Muslim members believe that the party does not represent them. And that is quite a startling statistic, because the report also states that in 2017, 85% of Muslims voted for the Labour Party. So the problem that the people seem to have is that, and they believe that the party has, is the party believes that these people, no matter, this is what people's perception seems to be, that no matter how we treat Muslims in terms of whether we ignore them or with empathy, they will vote for us. They have nowhere else to go. And that is a very dangerous situation to be in, because I've come on your show before and I've spoken about the Red Wall and places like Scotland where they have been taken for granted before. And unfortunately, all this will show is that the more people wiser up politically, that they will, even if they can't vote for some places, parties like the Conservatives, they will not vote at all. And that will be damaging for the Labour Party, because Muslims have always been loyal. They've been part of working class communities, and they still remain mainly within working class communities at the bottom of the spectrum in terms of income and the pay gaps. So it's important that the Labour Party does represent all working class communities, and Muslims have to be made comfortable to be represented by the Labour Party and not just taken as voting fodder.
I mean, I feel slightly uncomfortable in this discussion, because it's, obviously I'm not not obviously, but in fact, I'm not a Muslim myself. And so sounds a little bit sort of like them and us, but we have to explore these issues. And I think it's up to non-Muslims as well to say, well, this problem is our problem. It's not just, Muslims have got a problem, leave it to the Muslims to talk about. It's a general problem. So now I'm going to move on and ask a very silly question. Have you noticed, any Islamophobia in Tower Hamlets? There's a lot of Muslims in the Labour Party, possibly even a majority, and a third of the local population in Tower Hamlets is Muslim. So can there really be a problem even somewhere like Tower Hamlets?
Tower Hamlets has always been a hotbed of racism. We know from the history, and Labour Party has its fair share of these incidents. I, as a Muslim, I speak to people on a regular basis, and I did my own survey, regardless of this survey that was done recently, and a lot of people actually, until now, did not have. They felt they didn't have a voice. They were sort of suffering in silence. I've had people come up to me and say to me they felt very intimidated, like when they go to meetings, people aren't welcoming, people make indirect comments. These are the things that really concern a lot of people in Tower Hamlets, and a lot of people have been discouraged from sort of becoming members or even attending meetings. I know a lot of people who've come up to me since I've become active in the party, and they say, "Oh, look, Islamophobia, racism is rife in the party. So why should I actually join a racist party?" But personally, I was able to sort of convince a lot of people to come, because the only way we can change things is through participation in a political field. Like, if you don't actually become a member of the party, how can you change things? So
exactly. But Rule, is it people feel an unwelcomeness and anti-Muslimness and Islamophobia in what the Labour Party does in its sort of political behaviour with the voters, or is it actually internally in terms of its behaviour towards its own members?
Yeah, both. I would say both. Like, even members are, a lot of the times you find that members they feel uncomfortable, they feel intimidated because of indirect comments or gestures that are made towards them. We see, like Misha mentioned earlier on, high caliber figures, like they tweet Islamophobic tweets. We've seen this in the past, and not many people have actually faced up to them. So that's one of the reasons. And also the party, I feel it's about time. These findings are quite damning for the Labour Party, and a clear process map on how to tackle this issue needs to be shown to party members. We need clear commitments from Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner and the senior Labour Party leadership team to root out this problem of Islamophobia from the Labour Party.
Excellent.
I feel that both the party hasn't done enough. The party has taken the Muslim vote for granted for too long. It's about time the party takes action, takes this issue seriously. And like we know from history, the Muslims have always, the majority of the Muslims have always actually supported the party, regardless of whether the party was in power or not. Even now, a general survey was done recently, and it proved that majority of the Muslims still actually, after all these findings, still support this party because they feel this party represents them better than any other parties that are
I think
out
there's maybe a correlation between sort of class, which essentially is when we say poverty, that's what we mean, isn't it? Class. And voting intentions and people, the working class people looking for a party. And perhaps now the issue of racism in that party and the need for anti-racism in the party is now coming forward and getting mixed up in the class issue, much as in the 1980s, the issue of women in the party was much discussed amidst some shocking behaviour. Mish, is that the same? Is Rule's experience the same for you in the Midlands? Is it a case of what Labour does in office or what Labour does internally?
I think any type of racism is a societal problem, and it's obviously political parties such as the Labour Party, which has a huge membership, reflects a certain amount of society, and so it is a societal problem. We know there is rife Islamophobia within society, within Europe, within the world, especially in the Western world, and it's all happened mainly since 9/11. I think there's a trust issue regarding Muslims, and I think the main thing that defines the distinction between Muslims and any other ethnic minority is the fact that Muslims socialize with others, but not as far as, I mean, we live in a culture where people go down the pub, so they'll socialize over an alcoholic drink, or they'll go into the pub. But if you're a Muslim, you're most likely you're not going to go to a place where there's alcohol being sold. You're not going to go to a pub. So then what will happen is people will go home after work and they won't socialize with each other because of these barriers. So these are barriers that people have to understand rather than mistrust. Because a Muslim won't go to the pub or won't go socialize with people of other backgrounds or cultures, it doesn't mean that these people are to be untrusted. The Iraq War, and as I said before, the imperialist and the colonialism, the history surrounding Britain around that, majority of Muslims come from countries such as the Middle East and then the subcontinent, be it India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. And these places are places that have been part of the empire before. And then obviously since the empire broke up, when we see this, the new imperialism, the Western American imperialism, where the Middle East and their venture for oil and assets from there. I mean, this is where Muslims have been also a victim of. So obviously we had the 9/11 events, and since then Islamophobia has really risen. I mean, if you remember, it was New Labour who introduced Prevent, and in Prevent is a program which targeted, demonized, and spied on Muslims. I mean, we saw extraordinary renditions which took place where British agencies supplied intelligence to allies in the war on terror, and despite a knowledge of abuse and torture in at least 200 different cases. And this is just a fact that Muslims are seen within the party. Now, I haven't faced direct Islamophobia myself. I won't say, maybe indirect. I'm not aware of. But I haven't faced any direct Islamophobia, and I don't think any colleagues within the party that I know of are in any way Islamophobic or racist. Now, whether that's in the top level or in my local level, I haven't experienced this. But that doesn't mean that there isn't there. But there are certain barriers, and the barriers which are there, I think the best way to get rid of them is for the party to be more trusting, the party to give more respect to the Muslim community, that we don't vote for them because we have nowhere else to go. That's not true. We vote for them because we believe the Labour Party represents our community the most.
Yeah, well, we've certainly seen that in Tower Hamlets, where the Muslim community, generalised, but on block, the majority of it has withdrawn its electoral support for Labour from time to time, when it has seen, essentially, Labour acting in an imperialist or colonialist manner. So the party should be well aware that it's... I mean, I would just say... I mean, it's good... We do have to inject a positive note here and say Muslims and the rest of the working class need a class-based party, need a Labour Party. So this is not triumphalist in pointing the finger and saying, oh, look, Islamophobic. This is about saying we need to reclaim our party for some decent practices. So maybe we need. I'll just say that.
Jenny, I think the problem is that back in the New Labour days, and this is the problem. This is why people feel untrust now, is that Muslims are put on the back burner because they don't win any votes. It doesn't win any votes outside the Muslim community to be pushing policies that are favourable to that, like such as Islamophobia itself. Tackling Islamophobia isn't a vote winner. That's what the Muslim community think, and that's why the Muslim community think that Islamophobia is being disregarded by political parties, because it's not going to win any red wall votes, whether you eradicate Islamophobia or not. And the fear is that populist policies that throw communities under the bus will be used by the parties, and that's where we have to make the difference. And the parties have to say, no, we are not willing to make policies where we're going to throw any minority, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Hindu, whether you're Jewish, any community under the bus. We have to do it in a way where everybody comes together in a shared struggle.
I mean, I must say, I've obviously tried not to be Islamophobic in the party, but speaking of somebody again who's not BAME, who's not Muslim, I will say I have become aware, I am conscious a couple of times of, if I go to a branch meeting and the meeting's kicking off and starting, I'm talking to the people I've known a long time. I'm talking to the people essentially who are the older members, the white members, And if new Muslim members come along, because my area has only recently been, in the last 10 years, been populated by non-white people, one feels shy. One doesn't want to approach them. One wants to relax. At Labour Party, you only go there once a month or so and talk to people that you know. And of course, that will come across as extremely unwelcoming. And it is unwelcoming. And it is something that people like me have got to stop doing. Of course, now on Zoom, we can't even do anything at all. But so I think there is that sort of really subtle feeling that non-Muslim members, white members, can actually do something to make sure that this impression is not being given. I did sort of want to say that. And also I'll say that I've been very grateful to a number of Muslim and Bangladeshi members, well, not that many, but a couple, so thinking of one in particular, who sometimes taken me to one side and said, Jenny, that kind of vote, that's something that, can you just think about how Muslim members or Bangladeshi members might actually see it? You know, when we're sort of setting up a subcommittee, should it have Bangladeshi representation on it, etc., etc. So I'm grateful to people who've helped me in my journey over the last 30 years consider the position of Muslims in the Labour Party. And I think we have to open up a bit more about that. So, Ruel, can I see you trying to come in here?
Yeah, yeah. Can I just quickly come in? So I just wanted to mention, like, recently what happened was, like, we had a BAME meeting, I think about 2 months ago, and some people just sort of hacked into our meeting, and they started posting like very vile videos of like Osama bin Laden and stuff. They wanted to sort of ransack the whole meeting. So we had to abandon the whole meeting, basically. So you can see what goes on, yeah? So that's one incident. And another thing, like, we've done from Problem Limehouse is we sort of agreed to have a good number of sort of training, racism training and Islamophobia training in conjunction with Hope Not Hate. So it was very successful. So there were the people were separated into different groups. So the Hope Not Hate, I'm sure you've heard of them. They organized one with the Jewish community, one with the Black community, one with the Muslim community, and the sentiments were pretty much the same. People felt that the racism is still there. Institutional racism is rife within the party. Party needs to do more. Party needs to have more socials, and party needs to have more policy, and party needs to really take action, because sometimes, a lot of the time, people complain to the region, complain to the NEC, but nothing gets done. I know of cases where it's been years and the people haven't heard from the NEC. So these sort of things, it doesn't really help people when people actually put in complaints. I just want to clarify, just for your audience, Jenny, what Islamophobia really is, just for clarity. And it's actually a close-minded hatred, fear or prejudice toward Islam and Muslims that results in discrimination, marginalization, and oppression. It creates a distorted understanding of Islam and Muslims and transforms diversity in name, language, culture, ethnicity, race into a set of stereotyped characteristics. As such, Islamophobia is a system of both religious and racial animosity. Just for the record.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so apart from can we just identify who really are actually affected? So in addition to Muslim men, women, and children, those who share characteristics that have been racialized as Muslim, whether it be language, clothing, or skin color, are also affected by Islamophobia. Thus, Sikhs, Christian, Arabs, and Hindu Indians have been targets of anti-Muslim animosity. Yeah, that's my point. Thank you.
No, thanks, Rahul. Yes, dear listener, I haven't reminded you of our telephone number. I know most of our listeners are very shy and reluctant to ring in, but we would like to hear from you if you would like to share your experiences of Islamophobia from the Labour Party or even in the Labour Party. To get through to the studio, you can see the numbers on the screen: 0208 1234507, 0208 1234507. Give us a ring, or you can comment on Facebook. I've actually managed now to find a way of looking at the Facebook comments. So let's go on to sort of be a little bit more, again, looking for the positive in this situation. The Labour Muslim Network has just produced this report on Islamophobia. It's got an introduction from Afsar Khan, who I think is an MP from the northern regions, although possibly a little bit norther and wester than the actual Midlands. And it's got some recommendations in, which are mostly about training and adopting the APPG definition on Islamophobia within the Labour Party. I mean, Mish, I know you've read the report because you've commented on it, but do you think the report has gone far enough? And do you think these recommendations will be adopted and actually put into practice? Or are they just, well, page 21 of the report on paper?
I trust that the party will act on the report, and the party has to unequivocally stand with our Muslim brothers and sisters, and immediately implement the recommendations on the working group of new BAME Labour structures as well. I mean, I think it's intertwined where we work to improve these by giving Labour BAME members a voice as well, because currently, if you remember, the Labour BAME structures aren't there. There is a BAME Labour rep on the NEC, but BAME Labour in itself isn't functioning right now. So this is something that the party has to give serious consideration to. And obviously, again, as the recommendations of the Labour Muslim Network, I mean, we've got to develop better political education and provide greater support as well for these members, because we've got to win elections in 2024 and we're going to win local elections in May and beyond as well. I mean, the main points obviously are, again, implementation of the report. And I think if you remember back to when this leader and the deputy leader were elected back in February, March time, both of them committed themselves that they will be, they will unite the party in terms of equality as well. And the deputy leader, Angela Rayner, even put out a BAME manifesto, which, to be fair, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen or heard of anything since then. But this is something that I think we need to remind them of their commitments to equality, and especially for Muslims, now that this has been recognised and we've got a report and the statistics there. So I think a development of comprehensive Islamophobia training and a code of conduct as well, in conjunction with the Labour Muslim Network and the Muslim Council of Britain, will help as well. And all the policies adopted by the Labour Party has to be equality in practice as well. Because,
yes, that's two of the key recommendations, isn't it?
Correct, that's right. The other ones were, I think, the adoption of the all-party parliamentary group definition, and also the publication of a handbook educating members on Islamophobia, including the list of commonly used tropes. And then obviously we've heard of the new independent complaint system that is being developed. My contribution to that would be that all complaints are treated with the same level of seriousness. We can't have different complaints being treated in different ways. So whatever the complaints procedure will be going forward, whether it's independent or whether it's in-house, whatever, all complaints of racism and bigotry have to be taken seriously. My personal opinion is being less draconian and implementing better political education and trying to rehabilitate people who are, because any person instructed in any ignorant or racist tropes are usually just ignorant. They lack the education and the common knowledge of how to interact or trust people. I think they can be revived and can be salvaged. If anybody can't be salvaged, then you give them the harshest punishment, suspension, expulsion. But if people can be salvaged, then we need to be training people to understand communities better. Now whether it's anti-Semitism, whether it's Islamophobia, whether it's anti-black racism, or even any gender equality, bigotry as well.
Good. Mish, forgive my ignorance. Do you have elections next May in the West Midlands area?
Yes. We West Midlands. We have elections every 3 years out of 4. So we've got a mayoral election, we've got police and crime commissioner elections, we've got council elections in different boroughs.
Do you think what the Labour Party is doing in this report, airing the issue and having the potential to take it seriously, is that going to help, or is that blue wall the red wall that's turned blue going to creep southwards.
Well,
and
I think I from what I've heard and from what I've seen, and I've heard many comrades and many members in our area. At the moment, the party itself is in a moral. The morale is low. The morale is low within the party. We can't campaign right now anyway. We're middle of a lockdown.
Yeah.
But in between the lockdowns, or even there's not many people looking forward to going out and knocking doors.
Really?
And that is a fact. And we're not. We are really struggling to raise the morale, and what the party has to do. And this is not just down to Islamophobia. It's with everything else. Remember the lack of democracy at the moment within the party that members are complaining about. The members not having a voice within the party. This is something the leadership has to get in control straight away. And
let's hope. Yeah.
and
I hope
stop
they're
this
actually hearing that message.
control freakery which they're being accused of. And I have spoken out about this. Well, we have to make sure that members are treated with respect, so they do go out, because they do all the heavy lifting. They do the campaign. They do the knocking doors, and they can't. We just can't rely on them to be glorified leafleters. They have to be treated with respect, and they've got to contribute. They have so much to contribute to the party and its discussions and its policies and its manifesto. So at the moment, if we are to gain in or do well in May in the elections all over the country, then we really have to unite the party ASAP. And by doing that, I think the leader knows what he's got to do. And I think rather than me commenting on it right now, I think you better hurry up and do it.
It's fine. Yes, I think that Boris Johnson has just sunk below Keir Starmer's popularity levels. And the Labour Party maybe has to take on board it does need feet on the street. So they're going to get feet on the streets in Tower Hamlets rule. How do BAME members feel and the forum about going out campaigning for Sadiq Khan? Is that a done deal?
Tower Hamlets sometimes seems like another world, actually, from the rest of the country. Obviously, I echo what Mish has said just now. Obviously, people aren't happy with some of the policies that have actually come, that have actually came from TFL and Sadiq Khan's office, such as the 24-hour bus lanes, which I'm actually campaigning on. Although it is a trial, but many believe that it's going to be permanent. A lot of private hire drivers, delivery drivers are up in arms because their livelihoods have been affected, literally thousands of people. So can you imagine politically that is very dangerous? Although Sadiq Khan is saying he has no option other than to actually listen to the guidelines of the government. Apparently, the government actually gave him certain conditions which he has to meet to get certain amount of funding. So, but politically, if you think about it, Jenny, it's quite dangerous. A lot of the people, Labour supporters, I'm very active. I speak to people on a daily basis. We have regular meetings, online meetings, and people are really, really upset over the whole affair. It's going to be very difficult actually getting people out. To be honest, that is the reality. Yeah, that is the reality, because I speak to people, and like Mish said, I worry. We've already lost Scotland for good. It's going to be very tough getting Scotland back. I can't see actually Labour Party actually getting Scotland in the near future. The North, we lost over the Brexit issue last election, and God knows, and it's getting worse. Like Mish said, even outside of Tower Hamlets, people, the morale is very low, very, very low right now. It doesn't help when you're in opposition, and plus when you have Labour councils actually making all these cuts, which the Tory government wants, it doesn't help. Especially when frontline services aren't being actually protected. That is the concern of the average person on the street. You see, so I worry it's going to be very difficult actually campaigning during the May elections. Because I remember last time when I actually campaigned for Sadiq Khan, people were like really excited. They came out and we had a victory. It's always nice to win, but this time morale is very low. I have to say it's going to be very difficult.
I don't think London is the problem in itself. I think the safe places. I think Sadiq Khan will walk it in London, But in places like the Midlands, where we shouldn't have a conservative mayor, metro mayor, where we do, it's going to be very hard for us right now, as things stand, to win this back for Labour. And these are the places where the difference is going to be made. Places in London or Tower Hamlets, with all due respect, are strong Labour strongholds. Whereas outside of London, and especially the further north you go, it's more difficult for us. And we haven't made any progress over the last, since the December elections in any of these places. We've missed an election period last May, and we've missed a whole year due to coronavirus. And it's at the moment it's going to be a huge struggle to make any kind of gains. And these people cannot afford to be living under a conservative government, where they are, as Ruhul Bhai said, as they are withholding money from councils and instead paying their rich mates in contracts and cronyism.
Well, I think Ruhul is giving us a bit of a warning that the Labour stronghold that was Tower Hamlets is can waver. I mean, it has voted for non-Labour candidates in number before, and also Ken Livingstone was elected on a massive wave of support and popularity for as London mayor back in 2000. But after he lost, he wasn't able to regain the seat. And we had 8 years of Boris in Mayor of London, I think. And I think I felt, as somebody living through those elections, that the Labour Party in Tower Hamlets, although it was divided at the time, and many Muslim members were not actively included or allowed to sort of run the campaign, that Tower Hamlets did not do its share and deliver the votes to elect to unseat Boris Johnson and elect Ken Livingstone. Can it deliver the votes to keep Sadiq against the Tory Shire?
I'm sure it can. We're talking Boris Johnson and Sean Bailey now. There's a day and night difference. Boris Johnson carried a lot of charisma. He was a well-known name. Sean Bailey isn't that, and Sadiq Khan is. Sadiq Khan is a seasoned politician now as well. He's well known, and although he has taken many personal attacks, I think he will come out well. I think the Boris Johnson thing was different because it was Boris Johnson, and we've seen how he can really turn things in his favour. He's got this charismatic persona where people seem to think Boris is their friend, but I mean, anybody with a right mind knows that Boris is not anybody's friend other than his own.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we need to begin to start.
Yeah. So obviously, Sadiq Khan, he's a very popular person. Like Mish said, he's well known compared to the Conservative candidate, and he has done his fair share of changes. He has delivered on certain things, not all, but town is like I said earlier on, is a very interesting place. We have seen people actually voting in different ways and not delivering as the party expected. But this, you will get this, Jenny. When people feel the party isn't listening, then naturally people tend to sort of protest vote, like they did in up north during the Brexit vote. But I think Townless, being Townless, it's always been a Labour heartland, and most people have this Labour value in them. Instill, I come from a family. My father, my whole family, we supported Labour. I can't even imagine actually joining another party. If I'm going to do any politics, I will do politics with the Labour Party, not Lib Dems or Conservative. I can't even actually imagine, because the values that I value, which Labour has, I don't think any other party has. You see, I'm a socialist person, and most of the policies which suit me, and I feel that the government should really help people in the times of their need, and that's where Labour comes in. And Labour time and time again has shown that they can come and help and come up with really good initiatives, projects. We've seen this in the past. Whereas the Conservatives, we know that the party for the rich, party for the selfish people. They've never really looked out of the working class. You see?
Yes, but I think so. One of you is using computer sound, and we're getting a bit of feedback and a delay. I think. I mean, I can't imagine being involved in another party, but you can't always trust the voters. I mean, we never thought that so many Labour Party voters would vote Tory in the north of England. Look where that got us. Scotland is the case in point as well. I think Sadiq would make it easier for us to re-elect him if he hadn't actually put a motorway through Fish Island in Bow. But I mean, apart from that,
can I just say, Jenny, in terms of, I understand what Rahul is coming from, but I think it's up to the Labour Party to make sure that they provide the electorate with a difference to vote for. We cannot be going back to the new Labour years when there wasn't much difference between the Labour Party and the policies of the Labour Party. I mean, any neoliberal program within them and the Conservatives in terms of who can provide what. I mean, again, under Ed Miliband in 2015, it was quite apparent that Labour was not an anti-austerity party; it was an austerity light party, and there wasn't an alternative given to the British public to vote for. So they went with, and the British public always vote for what they believe is the safest place to vote. Jeremy Corbyn was able in 2017 to be able to instill some hope, but again, due to Brexit and other things, I mean, even lack of his popularity, 2019, we weren't able to make any gains. We had to press the reset button. But right now, Labour, many have argued. I mean, I'm a members representative on the National Executive Forum, and members get in touch. We get hundreds of emails a week, and the members are concerned that at the moment we aren't offering an alternative. We're abstaining on important issues such as go back to Islamophobia as well, the Overseas Operation Bill, which grants UK military impunity against torture and war. I mean, that might not be a red wall issue, but it is an issue amongst people who value whether the Labour Party is acting differently or not. So I think what we do have to do is, on the policy front, we have to offer alternative radical policies, because the only way the Labour Party is going to win is by being a progressive, radical, transformative alternative. And that's what we have to provide.
I was going to start to draw to a close by asking each of you what the Labour Party, one step the Labour Party could take to start being more popular with the electorate, and make it easier to win elections and to make their own members more comfortable. And I think you've just answered that.
The policies, I think I came on your show last time and I said the policies from the 2019 manifesto, which were ridiculed, many of the policies were ridiculed by even parliamentary Labour Party members who weren't in the shadow cabinet at the time. But look at the importance of broadband now. In Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon only a couple of days ago announced that the 4-day week is a possibility. These policies were out of the box. Maybe they weren't introduced to the public properly. They seemed risky, but these policies are popular. 74% of the British population said that the Labour's manifesto was popular. Over 80% of Labour's members said they were popular. We can't roll back on them. We have to improve on them. So we're going to bring those back, make them familiar. But at the moment, the Labour Party is a talking policy, which is understandable to an extent. The election is until 4 years away. However, locally, we have elections every year. So some kind of policy dialogue where we can be different from the Conservatives has to come in at some point. So we have to offer different alternatives and radical alternatives. And again, coronavirus has showed us that we cannot go back to the old normal, because the old normal wasn't very nice. We have to provide permanent solutions to poverty, to inequality, and to for people who can't who work day and night and still can't afford to put food on the table and still have to revert to food banks. We cannot go back to that.
Yeah.
We have to press the reset button. We went back to the old normal after the global financial crisis. We cannot go back to normal after coronavirus.
And let me add to that. That counts for climate change issues as well.
100%. Everything the Labour Party has to do going forward has to be around the Green New Deal. We've had the Conservatives announce hydrogen cars all over by 2030, whereas there have been talk within the Labour Party of pushing back beyond 2030. We can't. We have to put the Green New Deal in the centre of everything that we do.
Yes, I mean, East London News has carried an amount of coverage on is it COP26 in its website, so direct you there. But Will, let me come back to you then. What measure could the Labour Party take? What single measure or a couple of measures could the Labour Party take to attract back its voters and cheer up its members? What are you looking for?
I think Labour Party should be seen as the Labour Party. They should really be the party for the working class. They should be listening. They should be coming up with radical policies, like Mish said earlier on. And we should not be seen as the party. We should not be seen as the shadow of the Conservative Party. So we need to listen more, come up with new policies, dynamic policies, and engage with the public. Only then I think we can form a government and come into power. So I don't think that is happening right at the moment. We need to unite. Obviously, all the parties have factions, but there will always be different thoughts and different difference of opinions within parties. But we need to unite, come together, and hopefully once we can listen and come up with policies, we can actually form the government. That's my.
Well, lovely. I think you both presented excellent pictures of what it is we're looking for. And I think perhaps we ought to also urge our leaders in local government to consider when they pass their policies and they make their cuts, just how party members on the doorstep how party members on the streets are going to argue that with the voters, and whether voters in the doorstep are actually going to come out and vote for some of the measures that are going across. Every service you cut for a child with special educational needs is a vote lost from its parent or parents and extended family. And maybe we need to stop having quite so much antagonism between the leaders and some of their quite strange actions and the members. So I'd like to thank both of you very much for coming on. I think it's been a really quality discussion about Islamophobia in the Labour Party and the wider issues. What happens to a party when it loses touch with its members, when it can't enforce and encourage equality amongst its ranks? It gets into difficulty with the public as well. And let's hope that Jack Straw, with his strange, I can't talk to a woman in a burqa approach, which presumably meant I was thought he would never talk to a constituent on the telephone because you can't see them at all, can you? But there we go. Hopefully he doesn't have to talk to constituents any longer, masked or otherwise. But let's hope we've consigned that all to the dustbin of history. Let's hope we've come to a situation where we have to mention it. Muslim members are valued not only for their ability to go out and persuade the voters to come out and vote, but also for their choice of candidate. And when in a predominantly Muslim party, a candidate is selected in a fair election, let's hope people don't step in and overturn it again. Let's hope we can move forward from the days when that used to happen. So I'd like to thank our two guests. I hope we'll see you again. Mish, great to have you on the Labour Party National Executive, speaking out along the lines you've been doing tonight. And Raul, welcome to our part of the Tower Hamlets stage. I know you've been on the Tower Hamlets public stage before, but welcome to our part of it. And hopefully we'll see you both again. Dear viewer, let me...
I just want to congratulate Amish again. I did congratulate him, but I want to do it online.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Jenny. Like I said, time allowing, I'm happy to do this again whenever you invite me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Anytime you're outside the West Midlands and have access to even better internet than you've got there, give us a ring. And congratulations to your 4 colleagues as well. I believe there are 5 of you elected altogether. So you've got some friends on the National Executive. We hope for great things from you. Tower Hamlets viewers, head over as soon as you can to the Tower Hamlets Council website, where there is a consultation on the library service going on. I haven't read it myself, but if there's a consultation, it needs an input. So please head over there and give it one. I hope you enjoyed the programme this evening. Share the link around with your friends and colleagues. It's been an unusual look into the insides of one of our major political parties in the borough. And next week we'll be back with a totally different subject. So tune in again, 10 o'clock next Tuesday. Thank you for watching and good night.